who are gracing this series of the webinar in person of the Director of the Employment and Wages Department of the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, Mr. Joseph Akpan. We welcome you to this webinar, sir. And we also have in our midst the program the program component manager of the Centers for Migration and Development of the German Development Corporation, in person of Mrs. Tolulope Olaiya Esquire. We welcome you, ma'am. You will hear from them a moment from now. They will give us the opening remarks for this webinar series. As we move on, my name is Wole Olubanji. I will be moderating the event. And just to give a little background to what we are doing, we are trying to build a vast resource material for migration topics in the country on various topics that are related to labor migration. And we bring guests who are resourceful in their own right to lead us in discussion. And today we are inviting someone like that, Dr. Sunday Onazi, who is the head of the International Labor Migration Unit of the Employment and Wages Department. We welcome you, and I'm pleased to invite you to take your seat, sir. If you join us, please let us welcome with applause. So this webinar is going to be very brief, and just for us to move sharply to the business of the day. We want to welcome opening remarks from the program component manager of our own Centers for Migration and Development, in person of our very own Tolulope Olaiya. Please welcome.
My name is Tolulope Olaiya. I'm the Program Component Manager for the GIZ Centers for Migration and Development. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar session on understanding how labor migration can benefit Nigeria's economy. I believe we all know that human mobility holds immense potential when it comes to economic development of any country, Nigeria inclusive. And labor migration is actually a vital force that is really under-leveraged when you look at it in the economic land space of Nigeria. Nigeria has a very vibrant and a youthful population. And in the last years, we would see that Nigerians who have gone on to work in other countries, they have contributed immensely to the economic development of Nigeria through remittances, through investments, through skill transfers. In fact, in 2023, I think the remittance to Nigeria was totaled at about $19.5 billion. And this actually contributed a lot to our foreign reserve in the country. It contributed to supporting families, and it contributed to the broader economic growth of Nigeria. But the conversation goes beyond just remittances. It goes beyond just skills transfers. It goes beyond investments, because what we see is there is a need for labor migration to be structured in a way that is sustainable, in a way that is strategic, and in a way that benefits both the Nigerian population and the economy at large. So today, I believe that the conversations here would look at the advantages. What are the advantages? How can we structure labor migration properly from Nigeria so that it benefits the economy of the country? Additionally, I believe these conversations will also look at some of the challenges around labor migration. There are challenges around exploitation. There are challenges around regulatory gaps. There are challenges even around brain drain. And some of the solutions on how this can be addressed would also be preferred here. Our program, the Centers for Migration and Development, supports the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment in the field of migration, regular labor migration, in the field of regional migration, and in the field of sustainable reintegration. So today, I believe that we would all contribute meaningfully to these discussions so that we can actually shape an informed and a productive labor migration from Nigeria. And on that note, I'd like to welcome everybody once again, and I wish us all a fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was Mrs. Tolulope Olaiya, the Program Component Manager for the Centers for Migration and Development under GIZ. GIZ is German Development Corporation. I have the pleasure of also inviting the Director of the Employment and Wages Department of the Federal Ministry of Labor, Mr. Joseph Akpan, for his opening remarks. You're welcome, sir.
It is my honor and privilege to welcome all participants, both on-site and online participants, to this monthly edition of webinar on the migration. Today's theme, which is understanding how migration can benefit Nigeria's economy, is both timely and strategic. As the world increasingly embraces global mobility, it is imperative that we view labor migration not just as a strategy to combat the problem of unemployment or poverty, but rather as a critical driver of economic growth, innovation, and sustainable development. The Nigerian government, through the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, have been putting in place a lot of strategies to promote fair and regular labor migration, as well as optimize the benefits of migration and development. Some of those strategies include the development and implementation of the National Labor Migration Policy, the establishment of Migrant Resource Centers, as well as National Electronic Labor Exchange, which would match labor needs and exchange for domestic needs, as well as those needed by the international community. We are also negotiating and implementing bilateral labor agreements with the major destination countries, as if we serve as the legal channel for productive and labor migration. So all these initiatives reflect our commitment to a well-managed labor migration system that protect our citizens, as well as promote and protect Nigeria's economic interests. To our intending migrant, this webinar is an opportunity to equip you with the knowledge and guidance you need to navigate your route at the destination country. So I urge you to continue to explore the opportunities available through our MRCs as well as our NELEX, and to take advantage of the various upskilling and pre-departure orientation programs that is being implemented by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment. This webinar we are organizing today is part of our broader national effort to promote inclusive dialogue, expand data resource material, and build a knowledge base for shaping forward-looking migration policies. It also aligns with our shared goals of ensuring that every Nigerian migrant becomes not only an ambassador of the nation, but a contributor to our national growth and development. So as we begin this session today, I encourage all participants, whether they are government, civil society, development partners, academics, and private sector, to share your ideas, challenge assumptions, and collaborate in shaping policies that really make labor migration a tool for prosperity. It is on this note that I want to warmly welcome you once again to this month's webinar on labor migration, and to declare this session open. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. We are pleased to have you once again. Thank you for opening the series. Ladies and gentlemen, as you have heard from our two previous speakers, the topic for month's webinar, understanding how labor migration can benefit Nigeria's economy. So the purpose of discussing this topic, Director mentioned, is very strategic to shed light on an important national topic. You know, we are in a country where young people tend to travel abroad for job opportunities. And there are a lot of misconceptions around this concept of labor migration. So what is migration itself? When does it become labor migration? These are the topics that we are going to be taking up today. And we have a very resourceful person who is going to lead us in discussion on that. In a few moments from now, he's going to take over this podium and take charge. But just to lay some ground rules, we will appreciate if during the webinar our phones are on silent, and because we also have colleagues online too, so we can, and the webinar is also going to be recorded for historic purpose. For that reason, I mean, we may want to be attentive, and not press our phones all the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to invite to take the podium the person of Dr. Sunday Onazi. Please join me in applauding him.
Okay.
You're welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Dr. Sunday Onazi. I'm an assistant director with the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, and I'm the head of the International Labor Migration Division and the National Electronic Labor Exchange of the Ministry. I am particularly delighted to be here this afternoon to discuss or to speak on the theme, understanding how labor migration can benefit Nigerian economy. Let me start by first and foremost defining labor migration. Labor migration is the movement of people from one place to the other for the purpose of employment. It could be internal migration. For example, in Nigeria, let me use Nigeria as a case study. In Nigeria, for instance, all the industrial concerns are established in the urban areas, like Kano, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and what have you. So youths and every other person, they are migrating from the rural areas to the urban centers where they can find meaningful jobs to benefit their lives. So in this case, it is called internal migration. Now, when you say labor migration, international labor migration is when people move from one country to the other for the purpose of getting employment. It becomes international labor migration. Now, why is it that people are moving from their country to look for a job in another country? One, because in developing societies like ours, we have pressure on the labor market sector of the economy. The universities are churning out graduates every day. The system is not able to create jobs that can absorb these teeming youth who are graduating from university. So, and they have to look for jobs elsewhere. This is because if you look at Africa or the sub-Saharan Africa, we have a burgeoning youth population. If you know what I mean by a burgeoning youth population, if you look at the population of Nigeria, estimate of the population according to World Bank is we are 230 million as of 2024. Now, out of these 230 million, many universities are graduating students. And the bulk of this population, they are youth population. Nigeria have about 60% of youth population. Whereas if you compare Africa or the sub-Saharan Africa with other parts of the world, there is a kind of asymmetry. What I mean by asymmetry is that there is aging population in terms of demographics. If you look at the European Union, for instance, if you look at America, if you look at Canada, if you look at Australia, New Zealand, and what have you, they are looking for workforce because their population is aging. Because the population is aging, and a lot of opportunities have been created in those economies. So people need to move. And this is the reason why people are moving. And why are they moving? They are moving because they want to better their lives. Because the opportunity over there is different from what we have here. We have issues like wage differentials. We have issues like social justice. You know what I mean by social justice? For example, In other parts of the world, the rule of law is applicable. But in Nigeria, you must know somebody. True of us. For you to be employed, somehow, in one way or the other, somebody must connect you, somebody must link you. So, it is very, very important for us to apply social justice in whatever we are doing as a nation. So people move to this country in droves because the pay, the condition of service, everything is better than in this place here. Now, there is a challenge to that. I will come to the benefit of labor migration. I just want to give you a kind of preamble. There is a challenge to that. What it means is that as a country that leverage on the exploitation of labor, we are going to be experiencing what they call brain drain. Because our professionals in the medical sector, our professionals in the academia, our professionals in the ICT, they are all moving in droves to develop societies where they can apply their skills. So what happened here? If you go to hospitals, in Nigeria, for instance, in Ghana or elsewhere in Africa, we are facing challenges of good quality doctors and nurses. I was discussing with somebody in Lagos last week, and the person told me, because she was a Minister of Health, she told me, once they post nurses to federal medical centers across Nigeria or national hospitals across Nigeria, after 2 years, all these nurses, they have migrated abroad because the condition of service over there is far better than what they can do. So that becomes a challenge for the country. There's other challenges that also, because of labor migration, that we can also mention as the program goes on. Now, labor migration is also beneficial to both the sending country, the receiving country, and the migrant themselves. That is why there is a connection between migration and development. There is a nexus. Why? Because people who have migrated, many of them migrated in terms of maybe going to study. So after they study, did they come back to the country? No. They will remain there to work. Because they remain there to work, they are still in contact with their nation because they have their brothers and sisters, their relatives who are still living back in the country, Nigeria. Now, whatever they are earning there, they are remitting part of this money back to the country. And that is where it becomes more interesting. Now, this money that they are remitting back is what we call remittances. Now, this money they are remitting back, their families can use this money to train their brothers and sisters in higher education, give them better education. They can use this money to establish business in Nigeria. And when they establish business in Nigeria, what happened? There is a multiplier effect. Because when they establish business in Nigeria, they are going to employ Nigerian citizens who are living in Nigeria to work in those companies. If you look at the ICT sector, our diasporans, that's Nigerians who are working abroad, they are investing a lot in that area as well. That's why Lagos is now becoming a Silicon Valley of Nigeria. Now, also in the real estate sector, if you go to Lekki, if you go to Abuja here, you see a lot of real estate springing up all over. It's diasporans that are bringing their money and investing this money. What are they doing? They are contributing to the gross domestic product of the country. They are creating jobs. They are paying tax to federal government. All those things are leveraging. The economies are leveraging on all those things, and it's promoting economic development. On the part of the individual who has migrated, is exposed to quality technology in terms of technology. Every year, Nigerian doctors who are based in US or in Canada, they usually come to Nigeria, especially in the eastern part of the country, where they have, a lot of them have built hospitals. And they came back with experience and quality, machines, the type that most hospitals in Nigeria doesn't have. They are bringing it from abroad, and they are coming for medical tourism here where they treat people free of charge. And many of them have hospitals back here. So labor migration is beneficial to the sending country, which is Nigeria, and to the migrants themselves. If you look at many migrants abroad, they have their family houses here. They send money for the houses to be built. They send money for business, ventures. And again, the destination countries, where they are going, because of aging population, they are benefiting from the skills of these labor migrants. These labor migrants are contributing to economic development in those countries because they are the ones who are working in industrial concerns. They are also, many of them are also employed in the academic institutions where they are carrying out scientific researches, where they are carrying out what we call R&D, research and development, on so many other things, and they're also bringing their experience to bear when it comes to startups. People like Elon Musk is originally from South Africa. His startup in America is making wave everywhere in the world, true of us. So labor migration is beneficial to both the origin country, to both the migrant themselves, and also to both the destination country as well. So in this regard, I think I've been able to give you an overview of what labor migration entails. And I would like to also talk about the efforts of the federal government of Nigeria. Because it is one thing for people to migrate. When you allow your citizens to migrate without without policy, without a framework, it's going to turn to what we call the clandestine migration, and a lot of things is involved. Before now, you'll be hearing people dying in the high sea, people dying in the desert. Nigerians were migrating in what we call on irregular status. Irregular status means people who are migrating without information. Before you can migrate out of the country, you need information. I think that's the reason why this webinar is very, very important. So those who don't have information, smugglers and traffickers capitalize on their ignorance, to put them in the situation of forced labor. And I'll tell you what we mean by irregular migration. If you want to migrate regularly, because migration is the individual's right. You have the right to migrate. Migration is as old as humanity itself. Now, if you don't have this information, and somebody will come to you and tell you, he wants to take you to Europe and offer you a job, that person is trying to put you in a state of forced labor or trying to traffic you. Now you can hear people passing through the porous border, going to the desert of Niger, to Libya, to elsewhere before they can cross to Lampedusa in Italy. A lot of people lost their life in the high sea. It becomes government, focus to ensure that the rights of Nigerians are protected. It's in this regard that government started carrying out what we call information campaign to discourage irregular migration. If you want to migrate, you need to go and apply for your passport. When you apply for a passport, you also need to apply for visa in the embassy of the country in which you want to migrate to. When you have done this, you are documented. There's information for you, you are documented, your biodata, everything has been taken. Then government can keep a tab. Government knows where you have gone to because there will be migration data at the end of the day. So when you migrate in a regular status, it's far better than when you migrate in an irregular status. Migration have a lot of challenges. If you migrate in an irregular status, they are going to traffic you. Many young ladies have fallen victims of these unscrupulous traffickers, where they will tell you, even your relative can come to your house and say, oh, my uncle, my auntie, I want to take this your daughter, this your son, I have gotten him a job in Italy, in Canada, elsewhere. Meanwhile, the motive is different from what they are projecting to your family. When you get there, they will now turn you into, they put you into a prostitution ring, where they will now begin to arrange a client for you. And when you said no, what did they do? They will tell you you are owing them, they have spent so amount of money on you, all of those things, and you become a slave. And all those things are happening. That's why government step in to regulate the movement of people from one country to the other in order to protect their rights. That is one of the most important areas of labor migration. We don't just allow them to move, we try to protect their rights. And how do you protect the rights of migrant workers? Government has formulated what we call the National Policy on Migration. And government has also established an agency called the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons, NCFRMI. Now, this agency is the coordinating agency for issues of migration in Nigeria. Because you agree with me, migration is a cross-cutting thing. It's a cross-cutting issue. It doesn't fall within the purview of just one government MDAs, ministry, department, and agencies, and as well, civil society organizations and NGOs. They are also working in the areas of migration. So because of that, this policy identifies all MDAs that are working in the areas of migration. and it is domiciled with the National Commission for Refugees, Migrant and Internally Displaced Persons. Under this policy, we have what we call thematic leads. I think we have 5 thematic leads. For example, my ministry, the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, is a thematic lead for labor migration because it's a mandate to promote regular pathways of labor migration. Now, we have the NCFRA itself for governance, that's the policy, coordination of the policy. Then we have NAPTIP and Nigerian Immigration Service for border management. NAPTIP is fighting irregular migration and human trafficking, while immigration is also preventing human smuggling, and because they are the ones who are at the border. So they are the thematic lead. Then we have the National Population Commission and the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics in charge of the migration management data working groups. Then we have, I think we have another group. The fifth group is on, the fifth group should be on governance itself. Now these groups coordinate each other. We have what we call technical working committee. We meet quarterly, 4 times in a year, where we discuss emerging issues when it comes to issues of migration in Nigeria. Now, labor migration is also a sectorial team, which is domiciled with the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment. And under the labor migration team, the federal government has also formulated what we call the National Policy on Labor Migration to promote good governance of labor migration in and out of Nigeria. Also, to protect the rights of migrant workers, both Nigerians who are working abroad and both foreigners who are also working in Nigeria. Labor migration is two-way dimension, because as Nigerians are going abroad to work, foreigners are also coming to Nigeria to work. Because in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria, it's highly dominated by foreigners. If you look at the construction sector as well, a whole lot of foreigners are also, if you look at manufacturing, we have a whole lot of foreigners here as well. So it's not a one-way traffic, it's a two-way traffic. As people are coming here, we are also going there. So the right of both foreign migrant and Nigerian migrant need to be protected. So the policy is a framework in order to coordinate this particular movement. Now, government need to also enter into what we call memorandum of understanding or bilateral labor agreement with destination countries. Because government is focusing on harnessing the benefit of labor migration for national development, which is speaking to the theme of this webinar. And in that regard, government has established what we call the Nigerian Diaspora Commission. Yes, the Nigerian Diaspora Commission is the 5th thematic lead. This Nigerian Diaspora Commission was established by federal government to interface and coordinate the affairs of Nigerians in diaspora, to bring their resources, to harness their resources for the benefit of economic development in the country. If you look at the Nigerian diaspora, like Tolu said, last year, every year the Nigerian diaspora remits not less than $20 billion to support economic development in Nigeria. And that $20 billion contributed 4% of the gross domestic product in Nigeria. That shows you that there is a nexus between migration and development. So, I will stop here so that, because of our time,
so that we can
if
take
anybody has
questions.
questions I want to ask, you can ask the question. Maybe you can understand it better when questions are asked.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Doctor. I think I will take the privilege to lead the way in the questions. And thank you for the insightful contribution. Just from what Doctor said, he's speaking from a very authoritative point of view. Is working on the labor migration portfolio, and the Federal Ministry of Labor is responsible for the management of labor migration issues in the country. So we are hearing from the horse's mouth this time around. So during the course of your presentation, I noted some things. The first one is on this point about health workers. So I know that there is this should I say, reluctance in the country, where people complain about brain drain, that health workers are leaving the country and we are training them and all that. Is there a way out of it? Because I also personally think that we cannot stop people from migrating. It is human rights to migrate, but at the same time, is it possible to put systems in place to ensure that the labor these countries so need are not drained?
Yeah, you see, the concept of brain drain is coined from the fact that if I am born in this country, I attended primary school in this country, attended secondary in this country, down to my PhD level, whatever level of education that I might have attained, that means I was trained with the resources of my country, Nigeria. So I'm expected to give my best to my country in whatever area of service. Now, when it comes to migration, it doesn't work that way, because the individuals train themselves or their family train them, and they are looking forward to the best in life.
Unfortunately.
Now, it becomes brain drain when the person that have been trained with the resources of the country have moved to other country. What you are supposed to be doing here, you are not doing in another country. But in one way, it's still being beneficial to the country, because there's what we call brain circulation. Many doctors and nurses that have left the shore of this country, who are practicing their trade abroad, they are still in contact with this country. Many of them still have hospitals in this country. By coming back to establish hospitals, even though they are not running it by themselves, somebody else is running it here, they are bringing superior knowledge to bear. Because if you go to those hospitals, you see machines that you can't find in the regular hospital. And they are bringing a different type of international best practices to bear in that particular hospital. And now, many of them still have businesses back home. So what you call brain drain in one way is also brain gain
in
another way. So it's also brain circulation. Now, for Nigeria to be able to stop brain drain, the federal government of Nigeria need to do more. One, how much is the minimum wage in Nigeria? President Bola Ahmed Tinubu just increased the minimum wage from 30,000 to 70,000. Is it compatible with the cost of living in Nigeria today? No. But as a president, he has seen what is happening in the country. He's trying his best. Now, people moved because they are exposed to better, wage differential. And look at the exchange rate between the naira, the euro, the dollar, and the pounds. So even when somebody is earning in this foreign currency, by the time the person remit the money back home, it becomes a very large sum of money. So, Ministry of Health last year has formulated a health worker policy. Government is trying her best to see how they can tame that particular ugly incident of Nigerian health workers moving abroad. So I think that can only be done by giving them the enabling environment for them to thrive at home. That is by increasing their salary. I remember during the COVID-19, I saw a video of a Nigerian health worker, a doctor, who was working in Nigeria, I don't want to mention the hospital, in Abuja here, who migrated to Saudi Arabia. And he did a video in TikTok. He said, my monthly salary as a doctor in Nigeria is my break allowance in Saudi Arabia. Okay. I don't know how true is that, but I watched the TikTok. I saw the guy during COVID-19 that were locked down. I saw the video. So that shows you what they are earning abroad. You can't compare to what they are earning in Nigeria. Now again, in Nigeria, like I mentioned, the issue of social justice is very, very key. People sometimes are frustrated. For example, you can be in an hospital that you are supposed to be maybe the chief medical director. Somebody who is your junior, who does not have the requisite experience that you have because of politics or religion or ethnicity, is put before you. People tend to be angry. And that makes people to also move as well. So for us to be able to put an end to this brain drain, we should also address the issues of social justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I mean, that was very sharp and on point. So, as a follow-up, this is just a personal thought. I don't know. You mentioned the age variations, especially in Western countries, and that it is the root cause of these countries requiring labor migration from countries like Nigeria. So, if there is an official policy from developed countries for labor needs in developing countries like ours, should we not also put a demand on them to develop maybe education infrastructures in this country, just to ensure that there is also a parity? I mean, if Nigeria sends maybe, let's say, one net worker, is it not possible for them to contribute money for the training of 10, 20 workers, because we have the population, yes, but we also need this population.
The world is changing. The world is changing. For example, if you look at let me use the word developing and developed world, what we call the liberal democracies of the world, aging is ravaging the society, no doubt about that. In Africa, especially in Nigeria or in West Africa, a lady may be 30 years and she's not married. She's feeling concerned. But in that part of the world, it's not like that. Even when people are married, they can agree. We don't want to have children. So it's negatively affecting their own society. But the industrial development is there. But the population to work is not there. If you travel abroad, you see somebody who is, let's say, 60 years, or 70 years, as far as the person is very strong, very agile, the person is still working. But in this part of the world, when somebody is 60 years, the person retires from service. When the person is 35 years in service, the person retires. Because we have the population. Now, for them to keep a balance, they have to open their doors. But they need to regulate. It's not everybody that they want them to come there. They want the high-skilled labor. We have what we call the low-skilled labor, the semi-skilled labor, and the high-skilled labor. They are looking for the high-skilled labor, those that can contribute to the development of their country. That's why you see, if you go to Nigerian University today, a lot of academicians have moved abroad. That's why you see doctors are moving, nurses are moving, ICT officials are moving, a lot of people are moving. People who are working in agriculture, they are also moving. Because they lack the population like us. But in the case of Nigeria, as people are leaving, more people are also being enrolled into the university. You can see the federal university can no longer accommodate the teeming youth. A lot of private universities are springing forth every day. And Nigerians are also, populating those universities. So we have the abundance of human resource in this country. And labor migration is taking away pressure from the labor sector of the labor market in Nigeria. Imagine people who are working abroad, if all of them will also be at home. The unemployment issue will be, disastrous. So in one way, like I said before, it's beneficial to both the sending country and the additional country and also the migrant workers themselves.
Thank you. I don't know if there is any question here for Doctor. And I also don't know if Mr. Sampson is monitoring the proceedings online in case there's any question so that we can ask Doctor. But I also have my own question because I'm so much interested in this particular topic. So, and it's about xenophobic attacks generally. So there's xenophobic attacks. Okay. So there's always this dimension to labor migration where maybe employers, some of the private sector operators abroad, they tend to employ migrants for cheap labor. And in that way, it puts pressure on the locals who see it as, migrants are coming to take away their jobs. So I mean, is there a way to ensure that there is a parity of pay in such a way that it doesn't affect the workers abroad? It also does not affect the human dignity of the migrants that are going there.
Thank you very much for that question. You know, when you talk about migration, issues of discrimination and xenophobic attack arise sometimes. What used to cause that is that many nationals of the host countries believe that migrant workers are criminals. They believe that migrant workers are coming to take their jobs. But that's not true. Research has proven that that's not true. But what we need to do in that regard is to carry out awareness creation and sensitization of the society. For example, there's what we call the 3D jobs. There are jobs in the local economy that the nationals of the host country will not want to do that job. The dirty, dangerous, and degrading jobs. It's the migrant workers that are doing those jobs. And by doing those jobs, they are contributing to the economic development of the destination country. Sometimes those things comes out of envy and jealousy because migrant workers are determined to succeed. I will give you an example. When during the Brexit, when the UK left the EU,
Brexit, yes.
A lot of things happen because the citizens of other EU countries have to move out. In the agricultural sector, farmers were crying from pillar to post because they have no worker to harvest the product. Their product was getting rotten, and then it got rotten in the farm. It also, if you watch news that time, you see that even to lift petroleum resources, that's fuel, from depot to different filling stations in UK was a problem. People were trekking with a 4-liter rubber to look for where they can buy fuel to fuel their car. It's because people move out of UK at that time. Even now, this Trumpism that is,
the United States
fighting against irregular migrants is already affecting the American economy in the agricultural sector, in the hotel and tourism sector. If you listen to news just about about 1 week ago, Trump has said that they should not raid hotels and farms anymore. Because farmers are complaining that they voted for him. Now, the irregular migrants who are working in this farm, all of them have deserted the farms. And they borrow money to run these businesses. They are at a loss. So whether you like it or not, these jobs that I mentioned for you, the nationals of this country cannot do those jobs. It is the migrant workers who are doing those jobs. Now, when migrant workers become very successful, sometimes it causes a lot of problems. If you look at, for example, the xenophobic attack, I will use the example of South Africa, where they are often attacking other African migrants. It's not because the African migrants have gone there to take their jobs. Because the African migrants are very innovative. Where there is opportunity, you cannot identify this opportunity. Somebody from another clime, another country comes to your country, identify this opportunity, and it turns into a money-making venture. When you see that person living big, living large, you are angry to say, he is a foreigner in my land, and why is he prospering?
Well.
But what he's doing, you need to do it. If you go to South Africa, you see a lot of Nigerians are doing their open mechanic workshop. They are repairing cars and they are making money. Many of them, they are repairing cell phones. Many of them, they are repairing laptops. They are doing a whole lot of business, bringing innovation to the economy. So most of the time, nationals accusing migrant workers is out of envy and jealousy. It's not that they are, sometimes they criminalize issues of migration. When there is a problem in the economy, they say it's migrant workers. Like Trump was saying that migrant workers from one of these Caribbean countries were eating cat and dogs during the time of election. It's not true.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. I think at one point we have been able to establish here is that labor migration is not a simple topic, as it's very complex, it's delicate, and at the same time, it is not all evil. From our own end in the country, you may have some policymakers thinking that, this thing is contributing to brain drain. and then it is not good. But that is not the case. At least that's what we have noted from this webinar so far. And that from the aspect of the receiving destination countries too, you also have people who have their own prejudices, their own bias against migrants, that they are coming to take away their job. As we heard from Dr. It is not also entirely true. It is all about zeal, the determination of migrants to succeed in foreign lands. You know, I know of this saying when we were in Lagos. People say that you don't come to Lagos to count the status. You know, so if you have like traveled to Lagos from your village, you are not there just to be counting things or to be watching. You are there to contribute to the economy, do something with life and make money. So that explains why migrants abroad are making it. And maybe I should just add this information too, that Nigerian migrants in the United States, they are one of the most successful, most educated professionals that you can meet in the United States. So we're actually a country of. Now, I don't know if there are questions within the audience. We have people here in the hall. We don't know if there is any question for Doctor, or maybe I should continue with my own line of question. We are in the next 30 minutes. We round up this conversation. And one of the reasons why we are having this is for historic purpose. We have social media platforms where we upload records of this webinar, both for the Migrant Resource Centre, which is also Migrant Resource Centre on Facebook, on Instagram. Then we also have the records of this webinar uploaded. We also have at the Centers for Migration and Development, we have a YouTube channel, which is simply Nigerian-German Center. So on YouTube, you can get to see some of our previous recordings of the webinar, and this particular one will also be there. So what we are doing is historic, which means that in the next 10-20 years, if anyone needs resource material information on this kind of topic, you can go there and get very authoritative information on labor migration. And you can say that Doctor has told you once that labor migration is not an evil concept, that it is also something Nigerians can benefit from. One particular point he made that I think I want to reiterate is the point on skilled workers abroad. For example, medical workers abroad, who by virtue of mixing with very advanced medical technology, have a lot of medical insight and could come back, open hospitals in Nigeria, come back, import very high-end equipment that will go a long way to advance the cause of medicine in the country. So we actually have that. So it's a sort of exchange. You go abroad, you are benefiting from the quality educational and labor system that is there. You come back with that knowledge, you are also contributing in a very technical way to the advancement of the labor quality that we have in this country. So these are some of the things that we should note about labor migration. And he has also told us about diaspora remittances, that it is well over $20 billion. That's a lot of money coming from abroad. Annually.
Contributing 4% of the national GDP.
So that's a lot of dollars, coming to the country. And in a country where we develop on foreign currency for majority of our exports, because we import most of the things that we buy, and you need hard currencies to actually transact that business. So that is actually contributing a lot to that purpose. So, I don't know, once again, going. Is there any question from the audience? What about our audience online? Is anyone checking for, okay. So, I think I should move on. Doctor, you mentioned some of the organizations that are contributing to migration management in the country. You mentioned NCFRMI, but since the purview of this webinar is about labor migration, what about the role of international organizations? What role are they playing in labor migration management and advancement in the country?
Yeah, that is a very vital question, very important question. The international community, in the form of international organizations, they are also supporting migration management in Nigeria. In fact, kudos to organizations like ILO, International Labour Organization, International Organization for Migration, the UN Agency for Migration, ISMPD, and also other international organizations as well. For example, in 2010, IOM implemented a project called Promoting Better Management of Migration in Nigeria. That program was supported by the European Union, EU. It was in the ambit of that project that the National Policy on Labour Migration, the 2014 maiden edition, was formulated in collaboration with stakeholders. Largely, it was IOM and ILO that supported the federal government in formulating that policy. Now, as at that time, issues of migration was at the front burner of international discourse in view of the challenges that Nigeria and other countries were facing through irregular migration. So IOM, through the support of EU, built capacities of national focal persons. They also supported in terms of implementation of the policy. For example, when the National Policy on Labour Migration was formulated in 2014, and it was approved by the Federal Executive Council in October 2014, IOM, within the framework of that project, supported the ministry in the implementation. And one of the achievements of that maiden edition of the policy was to establish Migrant Resource Centers. What we mean by Migrant Resource Centers, to promote regular labor pathways between Nigeria and other countries. Now, the MRC was established in Abuja. I'm talking about the pilot MRCs established in Abuja, one in Lagos, and one in Benin City. Now, we established the MRC in Benin City because at that time, Benin was at the front burner of irregular migration, where everybody's moving from Edo State through the desert and what have you. Now, when we established that MRC, what we do, we carry out a whole lot of information campaign, telling people that if you want to migrate, seek information from the MRCs. People will be able to educate you on how to migrate in a regular manner, so that somebody cannot capitalize on your ignorance or lack of information, to traffic you. Because at that time, this trafficking was, was everywhere. And NAPTIP was also carrying out this information campaign as well. You know the role of NAPTIP when it comes to irregular migration or human trafficking. So the ministry established that MRC in Lagos, in Abuja, and in Benin City. And also, the ministry also established the model job centers. We established 6 pilot model job centers, I think one in Kaduna, one in Bauchi, one in Abuja, Lagos, Oka in Anambra State, and one in Asaba in Delta State. Based on the achievement of this Migrant Resource Center and the job centers, the federal government on its own was able to establish 24 additional job centers. And then we have also established 1 Migrant Resource Centers in Nasarawa State, in Ado in Nasarawa State. As we speak now, arrangement is on top gear to also establish 2 additional Migrant Resource Centers supported by GIZ-ZME the action project that is being implemented currently by ILO. So we are going to establish one in Kano, because we noticed that migration to the GGC countries also taking place from the northern part of the country. So we need to carry out this information campaign for people to be able to know what to do when it comes to the issue of migration, because a lot of people are being trafficked. So we're also establishing one, the second one will be established in Enugu, in the southeast geopolitical zone of the country. Then as we progress, the next discussion will be in Port Harcourt, or maybe one in, we have one in South South already, but because of the large nature of the South South, we need to establish another one either in Akwa Ibom or in River State. So the international organizations have supported the federal government when it comes to issues of migration. For example, issues of data, because data is very key when you're talking about migration. Data also influence evidence-based policy making. So IOM has also established this what we call the Migration Data Management Working Group, which is also supported by European Union. Now, this Migration Data Management Working Group consists of MDAs, that's ministries, agencies, and Department of Government that are collecting issues of migration data so that we can synergize, so that we can be able to produce timely analytical data for decision making for both the federal government and also for academicians in the academic institutions as well. So in terms of the support, we have enjoyed tremendous support from international organizations.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah. Thank you. So we have about 10 minutes to round off. And just to note that, once again, doctors from the Migrant Resource Centre too, and he has just mentioned that the Migrant Resource Centre is the institution to visit when it comes to seeking information on migration, especially labor migration. So if there is any intention to migrate, instead of visiting scammers, you can visit any of the Migrant Resource Centers that we presently have in Nasarawa State, in Abuja, in Lagos, and Benin City. And we already have some on the way too. In fact, there cannot be too many Migrant Resource Centers in a country of over 200 million people. Moving forward, and I think from my own end, this will be the last questions. In terms of policy direction or the evolution of the migration policy in the country, what should we be looking at to be put in place to maybe synergize or improve labor migration in Nigeria, that Nigeria can also benefit from it?
Yes.
That it's not just going to be the Western countries that are benefiting from our human resources, but we're also benefiting economically.
Yeah, like I said before, policy, like they define it, is a broad statement of intent and a guide on which decisions are made. So the policy framework is already enacted in Nigeria. And why? Because government need to regulate migration. In Nigeria, government cannot stop people from moving. People can move. But what government is trying to do is for you to know how to migrate. That's what we call regular pathways. Now, like I said before, we have the National Policy on Labor Migration. The focus of that policy is to promote good governance of labor migration in Nigeria. And through what we call organized labor migration in the form of MOU and bilateral labor agreements. Now, Nigeria need to enter into bilateral labor agreement with labor receiving countries. Because when you enter into agreement, it will help to solidify the protection of the right of your migrant workers. Because you will not know where your migrant workers are working, because you have the record. And there is an agreement that is binding between you and the destination country. In that agreement, issues of wage, let's say wages, if a person is receiving salary, how can the person remit his money back home? Will be discussed in that particular agreement. Issues of, let's say if there is a force majeure, like what we have in the case of COVID-19, what will be the contribution of those destination countries to the welfare of the migrant workers? issues of protection, issues of integration into the host economy. All those issues are also discussed. Now, it's also interesting to know that the federal government is also licensing private employment agencies who are recruiting for domestic job placement and also who are recruiting for overseas job placement. Now, why is government doing that? To protect the right of Nigerian migrant workers, to prevent them from falling into the situation of irregular migration, human trafficking, smuggling, and unfair labor practice. Now, if you are recruiting for overseas job placement, there's what we call the pre-departure orientation seminar, the PDOS. The company need to bring this migrant that have been recruited for overseas job placement to the MRC, where we have dedicated staffs who are well trained to support this migrant by exposing them to indicators of forced labor, to other vices that may arise as a result of labor migration. And when we carry them through this routine, you find many of the migrant, would-be migrant, who says, oh, I didn't know it's like this before, I don't think I'll travel anymore. Whatever happened, home is home. I will better remain at home to fend for myself. And you hear another category who tell you, whatever it takes, I am determined to move. I'm already moving. So what we are doing there is to see that the contract of employment is in line with the provisions of the labor laws in Nigeria. Because sometimes somebody can write a contract agreement for you in a different language that you cannot understand. So you are selling yourself into slavery. So we cross-check this agreement to see that whatever is in this agreement is in line with our labor laws, the Labor Act. So this is the reason why policy is very, very important. Now, policy also talks about issues of coordination, because it's not something that one government agency can do. We have stakeholders. Like I said before, we have civil society organizations that are working on the issues of labor migration. Where the right of migrants are being abused, sometimes government may not be able to be everywhere. But civil society organizations can say anything. They can also contribute to issues of labor migration. So policy, the framework also coordinates the activities of different stakeholders within the migration space. You're getting what I mean? So now we have 3 policies as of today. We have the National Migration Policy that is domiciled with SFRMI, is a overarching framework. All other sectoral policies are speaking to the National Migration Policy. We just review the second edition of the National Migration Policy. Now, the National Policy on Labor Migration is governing labor migration, which is domiciled with the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment. Then there is government agency that is interfacing with Nigerian migrant overseas, trying to harness the benefit of labor migration for national development. Then we also have the IDP policy, which is an internally induced challenges of migration as well. So these policies are on ground already that we are using to promote regular pathways of migration in and out of Nigeria.
Thank you, Doctor. Oh, so there's a question for you, sir, that in seeking information regarding international migration, does one need to pay? Yes.
Okay. Convention 181, I think some provision of that convention prohibits collecting, charging would-be migrant. And then from the end of the federal government, whatever services that we're rendering is free of charge. We don't charge anybody for anything for a dime. If you come to the National Electronic Labor Exchange for you to upload your resume online, it's free. We have dedicated staff that can help you. If you cannot use the internet, we have computers in the center. Our staff can help you to upload your resume. And when there is any job is advertised through the web portal, information messages is sent to people that have reached out with the ministry to apply for those jobs. And when we are shortlisting for our programs like employability training, like entrepreneurship training and what have you, we also select from the database of people who have reached out with the Ministry of Labor. So whatever services that we are rendering to the general public is free of charge. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So just as you have heard from Doctor, you can walk into any of the centers of the Migrant Resource Centre to seek information on migration, and not only on migration too, even for training opportunities, upskilling, There are several upskilling programs that the Migrant Resource Centre also conducts too that you may want to benefit from, including career counseling and related
vocational
trainings and
employability trainings,
and also I think internship opportunities too. I think that is also for people who are seeking some form of work experience or another before they launch themselves into the labor market. I thank you everyone for attending this webinar. It has been a very insightful series, and we will continue next month. But before we leave, Doctor, we appreciate you for answering our call and for providing this very insightful information for every one of us. And we also appreciate our participants here and our participants online. And we hope that next time we invite you, you are going to also heed our call. So until next month, my name once again is Wole Olubanji. I'm the project and communication advisor at the Nigerian-German Center, and it's my pleasure to have you all here. Thank you. Please.
And I want to thank every one of you for honoring our invitation. And if you have not registered with the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, please try to visit our office in the Federal Secretariat, so that if you can, if you are a graduate and you are looking for a job, we can also help you to connect you to your dream jobs. You can come there to upload your resume to our web portal. We call it the National Electronic Labor Exchange. And in case, in future, if any of you want to travel out of the country, there is need for you to visit the MRC, either in Nasarawa, in Ado, wherever it may be, in Lagos or in Abuja or in Benin City, for you to get first-hand information, so that somebody cannot, traffic you, somebody cannot, put you in the situation of forced labor. We have dedicated officers that render these services free of charge. So you are encouraged to visit the MRC because there are a lot of benefits attached to it. We are collaborating with GIZ-ZME, where we have trained almost more than 300,000 Nigerians in different vocations. And after the training, they gave them what we call the startup tools, so that you can use it to start your business. We have success stories today. And I believe maybe one of you in this hall can be a beneficiary of one of those vocational training. So tell your friends, let them come to the ministry to register. It's very, very important. So this will be my take-home message for you and your friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for that closing remarks. Thank you. They say information is power. I believe that now you are very empowered with the information you have received here. So we have come to the end of this webinar. Now we can end it online. We appreciate our audience online too. So what we have next is to just take a group photograph, and I think downstairs, that will be announced later. So thank you very much.